Folks, welcome on back for another fantastic edition of our Traders Talk workshop. Almost the end of the month here, March 31st. Great to have all of our students. So in chat right now, joining us here, Patrick, Debbie, got Bob, got Kevin, Chuck, got Leda, Lynn and Randy, got Richard, Barbara, Pat, Gillis, Marcella. Got a full house here inside our live trading room. Otherwise, though, joining us on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, etc. That handle popping up on the lower left there, at Cyber Trading U. If you're new to our social media streams or platforms alike, just go ahead, hit the follow or subscribe button down below. And otherwise, every Monday afternoon, I hop on here myself, Josh Levitan, 10-plus year pro of the market, senior instructor of Cyber Trading University. But this workshop here we do every week to give you at least the best chance possible for knowing why we're doing what we're doing, why we're calling out stocks like MLGO, how we're finding them, otherwise how we're trading them, how we're jumping in, how we're jumping out, where to anticipate breakouts, resistance, support, you name it. So each and every week we do this. If you have any questions for myself here, feel free to shoot me over a quick email, josh@CTU Trading. That'll pop up here coming up. But otherwise, all of our students, we have some questions to go through from them. And obviously, we'll talk about MLGO here in just a moment. This was like really the head honcho of the morning, really the star of the whole week last week. But, I had a question that came in earlier from one of our students. I told him right away, I said, Mike, I got you, no worries. We'll get to this trade first, actually. So he wanted me to go over the MySize trade, MYSZ, stock from this morning that also ran pretty well. So he just said to me, good morning, Josh, for Traders Talk. Could you go over MYSZ? I know it was a short-lived trade topping out at $3. Let me turn over to it. So, yeah, I mean, Mike's absolutely head on here. It topped off at $3, and it was shortly lived in terms of duration or time. I mean, again, we're going to go through the greatest hits here inside our live trading room. Although great to see one of our trial members here, Charles B, testing our room out here. Let me ask our students here this, though. Let me ask Chuck, Debbie, Bob, Kevin, all of our students here that have gone through our classes, what time normally do we expect reversals to happen? Great to have John S., Michelle D., Charles B., our trial members just joining us here for this week. But Gillis and Sam, Pat, Kerry, Barbara, all saying give or take a little bit, but right around 10:30 in the morning, right? I don't think this reversed or topped off at 10:30 in the morning, did it? A lot sooner than reversal time. This was a very short-lived trade in duration of time. That's what Mike's pointing out here, and he was very much correct. So he's saying just looking to see where you would have entered, set a stop, or exited. He's at work right now, but he has me in his ear, like through a little earbud right now. Just may not be able to be at his computer when I do this. We record this workshop. It's on YouTube. It's on the student portal on our website. So Mike, one of our longtime Diamond students, he certainly knows. And with that, let's just jump right ahead to this trade. So yeah, we called the stock out. We called it out shortly after the market opened up. For any of our students here, like Mike, simply I always say start and stick with the watch list that we post out. I mean, that's going to be your best way of, making money on MLGO this morning, right? So you don't want to just instantly, throw our watch list through a paper shredder and just say, just look at something else. But if there are stocks that do pop up after the first 5 minutes, not the opening bell, but after the first 5 minutes, then we'll try and see if it sticks, if it has, support building, flipping resistance into support perhaps over time. This was a pretty quick pop and move up. So although you might think it could pull back and try and build support, it just kept going up pretty well. So let's just take a look to see what happened. I did not trade this stock here today. That's because I was trading MLGO, stock that was on our morning watch list, right? So let's see where we could have possibly maybe have entered from. So right away, that's where I would just point out, focus on your 50-cent levels and whole number levels for a stock like this. Right away, that would just kind of scream to me like $2, $2.50. Then obviously where it did top off, $3, you do assume resistance to be there just because, for a cheaper stock like this, these 50-cent levels and whole numbers are normally pretty strong. So they're more assumed than anything, but you want to start with that. Now, let me ask our students here this. Maybe Michael, if he's joining us right now, or Carrier, Victor, who I just spoke to earlier, or Farzad, or Lynn and Randy, or Gillis, anyone here. Where else is there a big level on this screen, on Bookmap, this whole window, this whole screen, where do we have a big level? If you're a phase one student and went through the phase one class just a few weeks ago, we've covered this a little bit here. What do we got? Where do we see a big level if you're just utilizing this whole screen? The whole screen here, right? We got Gillis and Sam both saying $2.10. Lynn and Randy saying 220. 220, I only see about like 1,000 shares there. So that's not really a big iceberg level. If anything, though, if I'm just kind of looking at this here, I'd say right around 210. Looking at that CVP level, and I think that Sam wrote that. Gillis, I think, answered that pretty much right here. This sticks out quite a bit. This sticks out quite a bit, right? So that's just where I'd tell you, at least, if it could break over that, then perhaps that you have a nice trade to work with to start. The only issue is just that if you're waiting the first 5 minutes, this pops and holds support, then goes up all in a span of a couple of minutes here. So I typically am a stickler to my rule set. Typically is the key word there. And I'll get to that just in a moment with MLGO. But at least here, otherwise, I don't take this trade normally unless it's after the first 5 minutes. This does make a pretty strong move up, though, to begin. It goes up towards 250. Basically, what you see here is that it breaks over 250. I wouldn't be trying to take the first test of this level anyway. Normally, the first test of big resistance or any level, you typically expect to see it hold. So it nipped over it and pulled back. Now, though, from this point, the more it could nip back over it, break over it from that point going forward, then that's where you're thinking resistance will flip into support. So it's easy to say in hindsight is that, yeah, it does that. It flips 250 resistance on the next test, breaks over it, and it rightfully stays over it. Looks like there is an iceberg order that shows up here that gives it the little kip up afterwards. But, basically just honing in on your 50-cent levels, there's still plenty of time to jump in. Just, if you miss it off of like 210, your next level's at 250, and easy to say in hindsight, but with this iceberg, it gets the job done. Resistance flips into support. Now, after that, that's where I'd say $3, but like 290, $3. If it could at least flip that area over time into it, then then you could try and assume the same thing. So here, we'll take a look. First test of 3, pop and drop. That's not a surprise at all. Now, I think that we had that iceberg order at 290. So more or less, the more it can keep nipping and testing this area of resistance, then I'd say there's a better chance of it popping over it. But what you see here is not what happened at 250. What you see here is a lower high and never got back over that level of $3, there. Here, it tested 250 at first, pulled back, but within just like mere seconds, like 10, 20 seconds later, it broke back above that price. It's most importantly, it stayed back over that price. If anything, I'd probably give it as much slack as this year, just a little dip point down at 244, but it holds above that, right? Now, the thing is that with $3 and 290, the first time it tested it, rightfully so, you'd expect for that to hold. Now, can it keep nipping and testing it? Can it break over that? And then even if it does break over that, which it didn't, held under 3, even if it were to break over 3, does it stay over it? Does it play nice? We need to make sure it plays nice. If it doesn't, you're still getting this same reaction down. It's just that here it made it easier for us to anticipate because it held under $3, never broke back over that, let alone a higher high. And from there, as much as you'd expect reversal time to be 1030, when it pulls right back down here afterwards, you say, oh, that's not good. Because otherwise, unless if it's sticking near the highs, there is a chance for this to reverse a lot sooner than expected. It happens at times. The trade I'll jump back to for a little while now going forward, the stock WOK, like some no-name company. I remember like within the last month, they did that move. It popped up at 9:45 in the morning, and then next thing you know, it completely reversed much sooner than you would expect right here at 9:45 in the morning, right? Well, we had resistance at $6 here, $6. So first time it tested it, it basically held. No funny business at all in this one. But once it just pulls right back down and it's not sticking the way it should, that is a giant red flag. So my mind going into the morning, I normally do put my mind towards reversal time around 10:15, 10:30 in the morning. That will more often than not allow me to hold on to a winning trade longer. That will more often than not allow me to feel good about the morning ahead. But when this is at least not just holding a resistance, but breaking down here, not kind of holding this area at least as support, that's a huge red flag. And it's easy to say in hindsight, but look what the end result was. I mean, this is just some no-name company. So WOK, they're like $6 when we traded it here. They're at 50 cents today. So I'm not trying to drive fear into anyone with saying that, but for the my size, no surprise that this is back down, and it's actually negative from where it had opened up this morning. So, if it's not going to hold and continue, then just be mindful that something like this could very well happen. I remember ONDS, another cheapy stock, drone stock. Actually, this thing popped a little bit earlier today, but pretty similar move. It was right here, right? This was actually, well, this reversed even before 9:30 in the morning, mind you, but I was looking for a higher low and a move back up. So, this basically, just did the same thing. It's the end result that matters here. You don't want to get stuck hoping and holding. You don't want to get stuck pushing the goalposts lower and lower. Oh, it's going to bounce from here. Oh, it's going to bounce from here. Oh, it's going to bounce from here instead. Oh, 10:30 in the morning. Oh, it might bounce back up. Once it's already like shot like that, it's not normally expected to make another big move back up again. So just going back to MYSZ later today, just check back in on this trade. I would extremely doubt for this to come back up again. That's all. All right, so that was just a quick review from my student, Michael. If you have any questions on that, let me know. That goes across the board, not just to Michael, but to Gillis, Sam, anyone here in chat. But let me ask here, who here ended up making money on the MLGO trade from earlier today? If you made money on MLGO here earlier today, let me know. See, earlier today, I see it moving right now. If you're in it right now, I'll root you on. But right now, our focus is on the morning. Our focus was on this stock from earlier. Why was it on the watch list with the time that we had in the pre-market? Where were the best levels that you could have utilized? So, of course, it's going back up a little bit right now. We'll try and focus in on this in just a bit. But Joyce, Leda, Alicia, Belle, Marcella, skipping Patrick there, and Barbara as well included with that. But the ladies at the trading room cleaning up at least on the stock. It looks like there's Patrick, though, and Lee and John. And I see Carrie from up top there as well. My apologies. Got my chat tiny here. So, looks like the ladies predominantly, though, just crushed this trade. Great to see. Let's go over this even from a little bit from Friday. Okay, so if you recall, on Friday, we had our Phase 2 stock course. If you're a silver student or above, I know a lot of us here that chatted me back just now are that, and they were with me on Friday. So more or less with the MLGO trade, we saw some big icebergs on Friday. And whether those orders got broken through or those orders got pulled from the book, they were out there for a long amount of time. And I'm going to respect those prices as support or as resistance. I mean, for reference, we had resistance at $20, right? $20 here. Well, that's normally a key level. Like normally you'd figure like $10, $20. Those are more psychological prices anyway. So it's just a matter of like, all right, well, it shows it here on the heat map. This was from Friday, right? So very likely this could still be a big level going into today. Now, outside of this level that, quite frankly, should be assumed, $20. And that should be, an assumed level. What's an interesting price is right here. At $18.80, we had an 85,000 share seller out there at this like weird price, $18.80, and they were out there for a good portion of the day. They're out there beginning from 10:14 Eastern all the way through to 2:30, right? I mean, like I mentioned in class, that's no cup of coffee. That's out there for a long time. So I want to respect that price as a level still. Even though this order got pulled from the book, that should still be utilized as a level. Guess what became a level here? Hey, I don't make this shit up. I just try and follow it. You know what I mean? So if you think I make the rules, if you think Fausto even made it up, I mean, obviously Cyber Trading University, but he learned from his mentors. It's just a matter of respecting levels. So this did become resistance here Friday afternoon. Now it broke over it, right? It broke over it here, and it came back down a bit. Came back down. All right, let's just focus in on this break over resistance, right? It looks like it popped over resistance right here. Just inched up a little bit at the time. Let me just ask our students this, though, because we talked about this in class. I'm not going to jump back into class mode. If you want to learn more from what we discussed on Friday, you got to be a student. But just simply put, who is winning this battle as this stock is moving upward and resistance is getting broken through at the time? Who's winning that battle? Are the buyers winning the battle or the sellers winning the battle? Who's winning that right there? Buyers are winning the battle. Malcolm, Kevin, John S. There we go. Charles B., one of our trial members. The bulls are winning the battle, right? Richard K., Marcella, absolutely. Now, obviously, it pulled back. That was it. All right, so game over throughout the day. All right, so point being is that if you want this stock to go up again, if you want this to make another run, the buyers need to win the battle. You got to see, stock break over big resistance. And most importantly, let me ask everyone else next year, when a stock breaks resistance and if it were to run, like we just answered before, that resistance should initially become what at first? What should that resistance initially flip into? Support, right? All right, so give me a second here. I'm just going to scroll forward to this morning in pre-market because it's easy to say it popped, right? Now, before we go into the actual pop, where do we have our big resistance in pre-market this morning? Where's our resistance in pre-market this morning, folks? What do we got? Got Peter joining us on YouTube. Welcome aboard, Peter. He's asking, can you show ES? I don't think I can. I don't have the rhythmic data actually on Bookmap. You could do this on Bookmap if you have the right data for it. I don't have futures data on mine. And if I were to just rip tradingview.com, that's 15 minutes delayed. So, I can go over that more so like kind of, I guess, in hindsight a little bit there, Peter, but not on Bookmap, though, unfortunately. I don't have the right data personally for it. All right, what do we got resistance here, folks? This morning, pre-market, all of us, unanimous decision, $22. It was there like a hockey puck getting passed around here at first in the morning, up and down. But it looks like it kind of stalled out at $22 and stayed there throughout the morning, right? All right, so that's our big resistance for today. Maybe it can get up to that price. Maybe it can get close to that price. That would be my thought heading into the open. Now, otherwise, though, that 18.80 level, that $18.80 level, remember what we talked about, right? Resistance flipping into support. I come with receipts at 8:22 this morning, folks. I said this to you. I have old lines from last week still on my chart for MLGO. I had one at 1870 also, but 1880 was the iceberg resistance. I believe this was taken, if not from the daily chart, maybe from the past couple of days before Friday. But more or less this 10-cent range, I was looking for that to become support. If that were to hold as support, I wonder how far it could run, right? I mean, I was kind of teeing it up there for you pretty much, right? So it's all a matter of, hey, is the stock trending up? Where is there a big level? Can we see the stock break over the big level? Can that big level flip into support? These are the simple things I wrap my mind around. I mean, this is like a category 5 stock. For any of our students here, Meccalinga, I see Pete, Joyce, Gary, I see Brian B, a bunch of students maybe just kind of tuning in, in the sidelines here. I want you to realize this is a very fast moving stock. It's, as we would categorize it, a category 5. Think about like hurricanes, right? Like me, I live in Southwest Florida. I just had Milton and Helene come by. This is like one of those. This is a category 5 stock that, is moving. So just as much as it could pop up, it could sure as hell drop right back down. It can make a head fake and crash right back down. So it's not easy to trade. But when I wrap my mind around these simple thoughts, hey, trending up, that's the first thing I need to think about, right? Goes back even to another stock from last week, not to jump around right now, but, this trade DRMA. I liked this stock on Thursday. It had great news, trending up at the time. All right, that's a start. Now it needs to break resistance and flip resistance into support. If it can't do that next, then we're back to square one. We're not getting anywhere on this trade then, right? And that's what happened on this at least. Well, this was on our list. It was moving up in pre-market. We have a big level here at the 1880. So this one, I rarely do this, but I only did it on small size. But I had jumped in off of 1880. I got in, I think, at 1890. It was on 100 shares. I got in at 933 at the time, probably a few seconds afterwards. But I got in at 1890, my entry, only 100 shares. You don't need to do more. It's almost like gamblish if you're trying to do heavy size on a stock like this. It's the same thing with trading like a very expensive stock. Because of how expensive the stock is, you probably shouldn't be doing large size. But that's because typically more expensive stocks will also move in larger ranges. MLGO is like a cheaper stock in relation to like a NVIDIA, but this is just as crazy. So you don't need big size to make big bucks. But I had gotten in right once it broke back over this area, 1880, 1870. I was filled at 1890. Now, if I'm seeing the stock break through a big level and if I'm jumping in, what am I expecting shortly after? Sam, Bob, Marcella, Patrick, Malcolm, when a stock breaks through a big level and I'm jumping in, obviously I'm setting my stop, I'm putting my seatbelt on, but what am I just simply expecting? I'm expecting a big reaction, a big move shortly after. Better be up. Better be up. If this is a big move down, then I could see this dropping back down to like $10 by the day. Now, obviously, we know what happened afterwards. Took off. I almost got stopped out. I almost got stopped out right here. Holy smokes. I was, I think, 1 penny away or 2 pennies away. I had my stop set at 1880 on this damn thing, and I held into it as it shook down, but I almost got stopped out. I was 2 pennies away, and it pushed back up, and obviously we advanced. We survived, and we kept into this trade. But think about this, though, where we have resistance at that level and it breaks out. Well, where's our next level? You could say 22. 22 possibly is our next level. I would imagine, though, that there's probably something in between these two prices that could likely be a pretty significant level here, pretty significant point. What do you guys think? What would be like an assumed level here? Barbara, I see, Kevin here, Chuck. 22 we already have. That's not assumed, Lynn and Randy. That's already there. I'm asking what in between these two prices that I don't have a level drawn out for already. Can we think about with our heads and assume for there to be a level? McGillis and Sam on the right track and Lee on the right track, saying both the numbers 20 and 21, right? 20 and 21. Well, let me ask us here, which one is more of the round number? Which one's more of the decade level number? On the right track, but there's a difference between those two numbers, right? One's a decade level number, a lot more psychological of a support resistance line versus, one would be a whole number every dollar. I would say $20 to me as a decade level number would be a assumed level, much like I would assume for there to be support resistance at just any $1 price. Any $1, I'm expecting for there to be like some level. 1880 was an iceberg level from Friday. 22 is an iceberg level from today. Those are point blank obvious because they show on the graph. But though, that's where I'm assuming $20 to be at least my next larger level that could be kind of assumed here. And what happened was this ended up crashing into $20 at first. Acted as resistance, the first test, and it ended up basically holding a second time here. But where I tell you, the more often that we keep seeing a level getting poked at, twisted, bent, poked at, twisted, it's going to break. It's the same thing that happened here throughout the pre-market. It was nipping and testing this. That's where I wanted the breakout here. That's where I was expecting this to flip into support. Well, hey, the more that this gets poked and twisted and broken through going up, then it's going to get completely taken out. The buyers are going to completely win the battle then. So I normally wait the first test of resistance, but the more it gets poked at and poked at, I'd feel bullish to jump in, if I was not in already off the 1890. But that's where I say for you, the more this keeps getting touched and hit, eventually you got to expect a cleaner breakout. Now that's at $20, an assumed level. Again, like 10, 20, 30. even $25 coming up. There's a $5 level, $25 as like a quarter of a century-esque number, $25. That could be a psychological level too. But otherwise, once it breaks over 20 bucks, our next level is that 22. It's that confirmed resistance at 22, right? 49,000 is a hell of a lot more than 38,000. And that was a hell of a lot more than 9,600 here. So, yeah, it broke over 20 bucks, psychological level. Now your next level is 22. Now, same thing happened. First time it went to 22, yeah, it popped over by like a small amount. What was the initial reaction though? Resistance held. It was a pop and drop the first test. Now, the more that this keeps getting poked at and twisted and hit going up, the buyers are winning that battle. So it's more prone for the stock to make a better reaction the more it's hitting it, right? Now, this is where I'm trusting reversal time. I have a strong belief that, hey, at 9:50 in the morning, we have more time left. My mind at least takes me there. I do have confidence with thinking first, all right, reversal time, that's not until 10:15, 10:30. Now, though, of course, the more that this keeps going up, that's where you figure you can never go broke taking a profit. Both myself and Fausto were discussing the $25 level here as like your next psychological resistance. So it was right around that price I ended up getting out. I got out at like 24.45, just kind of in between there, just shaking around. But it was when it first moved up to that price. And a lot of us killed it on this trade. So let me just actually just jump back here before I know Chuck cleaned up just recently on this. But and if I don't shout you out, my apologies. I'm just kind of going quick. But Chuck cleaned up on it. I saw Patrick B got a good amount on it from earlier. Bell, she had a swing trade on it from last Friday. Actually, she closed out at 22. Leda had a tiny position on it. She got like nearly a buck. Christopher M got like nearly $5 on this trade himself. He got in from 1953 out at basically 24, 25 area. And Kerry got in and out. Joyce got in and out. Bell again. Alex P. A bunch of us. That is all from the morning session. That was all from earlier today. Now, of course, for any stock to go up, 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 is it surprising that it reversed around 10 o'clock instead of 10:30? No, it's not. Just from the last example that we went over, it's not surprising. If it could happen to MYSZ, it could happen here too, I reckon. But it's not just the fact that this stock moved up here today, went from 1880-ish up to 25 like that, but just go back to the daily chart. This thing's on its like fifth green day in a row, or maybe like 5 out of 6 bars here are green. So to see the stock at like $3-4 back on March 24th, we're 7 days later and this thing's at 25. Every roller coaster has a top, right? So if you were skittish to jump in, I get it, because every roller coaster has a top. If you got some good money on it here, then I would not be too jumpy to take this trade going forward. It's better to be more pessimistic than aggressive. But when you see a stock like this active in pre-market, when you see it's making higher lows, at least it's holding up from Friday, there is a chance for you to say, all right, well, what if after the first 5 minutes it could pop, right? If reversal time's at 10:15 instead of 10:30, I don't think that makes a huge difference if you're jumping in at 9:45 at 9:35, 9:40 in the morning here. If you're playing the cyber clock well in relation to the entry, you're still going to be able to get a good amount of meat off the bone. Now, either way, hey, I guess it did bounce back up right now. It bounced back up a little bit here since we started Traders Talk, or even before we started. It's holding here. Is there a chance that this can go back up again? I'm not going to say there's a 0% chance. I'm not going to sit here and say there's zero, but I'm still pretty pessimistic. Let's just take a look, though, right? We got to take a look. All right, so that 22 resistance did at first try and flip into support, but it broke below it, right? Now, it got back over it eventually, and just even recently on this last shake, oh my God, take a look at how well that held. So that's a good sign. That's encouraging. Just the sheer fact that this came down to 22 and it nipped under and back over it very fast. I mean, this was a great test of support and it bounced back up pretty strong. So I will say that part is actually pretty encouraging. Let's go back to Bookmap though. I mean, that's got to stay as support at the bare minimum. The more that gets poked at as support, it's going to get rebroken and then that will flip into resistance again. Aye, what's this? What's this? 2350? What do we have here? About 59,000 shares on the bid. Looks like that ended up getting tested. And then it got broken through over time completely. Like it kept getting poked at, poked at. And you do see the fact that there is a pretty decent spike of volume here on the far right. So you know that order got filled. There was a big support here at 2350 that kept getting poked at and support broke. So one more time, folks, if you don't mind answering for me here, when a stock breaks through big support and it breaks, what are we expecting support to flip into? Resistance, right? Now, if you followed the chat earlier, you knew that I had mentioned that as well. At 10:30 in the morning, just a little before we started this workshop, I wrote to you. I said MLGO 2350 should hold at first, initially, as resistance. If you want me to put in parentheses there, initially as resistance, that's fine. Now, that's where I had said 2350 right there. First test, it held. Now, even here, it held again. It went up to 2350. This was the first time it tested this price since 10:34 in the morning. Talk about level tests. Remember what I said previously. The more times it tests it in a smaller period of time, in a shorter time span. So here, 10:34 in the morning to 12:18 in the afternoon, obviously it's over an hour and a half, nearly 2 hours we're going towards. So that's a lot of time in between level tests. I would be expecting resistance to hold once again there. That's not a surprise whatsoever. Now, the more that this keeps getting pressed and tested in the smaller span of time, there is a thought, there would be like at least a thought that this could possibly break over this. And then hopefully the goal here is not just to move up, but at the minimum, you would need to see that resistance flip into support. So I'm still not bullish on this at all right now. I think this has gone up too much already since the beginning of last week. But if you're looking for a setup, it would actually start with this 2350. And the more it at least keeps getting poked at, there's a chance for this to try and make another push back up to 25, maybe. That's all. All right. So let me know if you have any questions on the MLGO. I basically covered it from head to toe just a moment ago here. The entry that I had, the run up towards 25. I know a bunch of us killed it in between going up towards that price. Otherwise, though, for me, what was it? The NWTG. Just before I was just looking for, this to flip into support here. This was before 12 o'clock. So it's pretty much right here. Seeing this NWTG trade once again just act as resistance around this $2.15 price. So if anyone tried looking for an entry, there could have been a thought to it actually, even on this candle, because it's trying at least numerous times in a smaller time span. You should know pretty quickly, though, when a stock breaks through a big level and you jump in, obviously we want the move to be upward, right? We want the move to be up. But you should be getting a pretty big move shortly after. So if it just pops and then drops right away, whether it's one or two candles after, it's just a giant red flag. Hit the eject button, hit the close button at market, just get the hell out. That's it. That level should at least flip into support if you're looking for a move up. And then from there, you don't even know if it's going to make the big move up shortly afterwards. Just seeing it flip into support is, just part of the criteria. It's part of what's involved with seeing the move up. So you could just tell in like one candle here, all right, well, it's not making that pop for me. It's better to just take a quick loss on something like that than to waste your time hoping and holding and still not popping higher from here. It's like our biggest asset, I mean, not just in this market, but in life, my friends, is time. But here in the market, the more that we're, watching a stock not making a big move shortly after in our direction, not only is it going to make a big move the other way, but imagine the other stocks that are making a big move in your direction that you're not watching, that you're just simply kind of passing on because you're watching this do nothing. I mean, just earlier here, I was working with a student on Amazon, going over just the fact that, hey, we had a resistance here before. If we're looking for a better move up short throughout the morning here, then we need to see this at least flip into support. It did. All right, there's a trade here, right? There's something to work with, at least if you can get that first step of seeing levels hold, seeing levels flip from resistance into support. That at least, allows you to take it to the next step. All right, where's our next level after this? Can this continue to still hold with higher lows? Captain Hindsight comment here, easy to say this did, but it's just, it takes you to the next step in the trade, right? All right, folks. Give me a quick sec. Just want to make sure I go through an email or two here. There's actually one from last week I did not have the chance to get to. Kathleen, my apologies. So I want to get to a question that Kathleen had just asked, even from last week here. So just asking for my, just analysis and input on a few different stocks, probably just for a swing trade, but GM, ex-US Steel, and one of the quantum trades, QUBT. So it looks like GM had a big pullback here, perhaps with the tariff situation happening. Obviously, we're all waiting for April 2nd to take place. I think that we're going to see better movement in the market much after April 2nd, whether it's a bounce or more drop off. I don't think that April 2nd is the be all end all. So even with April 2nd, Wednesday coming up, wait till Friday this week. I think we'll have a more exciting end of the week. And then going even into next week on Monday, again, I think that things will be more telling. Now, though, as far as like name brand stocks go, GM and X. So GM having a good little recovery day today, making up lost ground here. I got to go back even further on this because they've been around for freaking ever. So I could probably just go back as far as I can here. I guess this is it. Had some pretty good resistance, Kathleen, on GM dating back to like 2017, beginning of 2018 here, right around 45 and change. And it broke over well here. It never really had the chance to flip that into support. Even here during like August of last year, it was shaking down, nasty down wick, but it made a slingshot. So it started to move up. But point being is just that this was such a clean resistance here and it broke it. Let's see if we can get resistance to hold into support. And that's what it's actually been doing very well dating back to the end of February and even here. So there's a case for this to still be a great trade going forward, but let's keep with higher lows. And then specifically, since it was pretty choppy around here for a bit before, let's make sure this 45-ish 45.24 could be like good support going forward. And it has been so far, but let's keep seeing more of this. And then there's a chance for a better move back up maybe. But obviously you can't really swim upstream when the markets are dropping off. And if there is a more negative reaction once these tariffs kick in going into April 2nd, then this is likely to break back below this level. So it's a nice price to watch, and it's been doing its job here the last several weeks, but just keep your eyes peeled there. All right, ex-US Steel coming up next. Let's take a look on this one. Give me a moment. See how far back I can go on this. So you can go back pretty damn far, at least back to 2001, 2002. I'm sure a lot more, but just shows the big run up, the big crash after. You had good resistance building back from around like 2010 time. Very good resistance here from 2014, 2018, basically on the gap up here at this point. It was chopping around it, but the more it's making lower highs, this drop back down is not surprising. There's probably a better play if this were to flip this into support, Kathleen. I'm just simply looking at the historical chart here, but with this being such a good resistance for over a decade now, I would say that once this resistance flips into support, you have a better chance for a move up. I wouldn't be as jumpy on X until that happens. And that's okay. I don't mind taking trades from a higher price level if there's more evidence behind it. If we're expecting more momentum going up, once this flips resistance into support, then I don't mind waiting. I'll be patient here, right? So it's a good setup to watch, though. The US steel trade right around that 40, 47-ish, 48-ish area. Then last one, QUBT. Quantums, yeah, it's not a good look zoomed out, Quantums. But otherwise, let me just flip this back, maybe even into a daily chart. Good support built back from end of November into December here. Broke below it once, but it did push back up and above. Had some resistance here. And that did flip into support at first. Oh, I like this. Oh, this is nice. I was looking at this area initially where my cursor is. I'm like, is that going to be good? Broke over it. Well, it actually was good here over time. This was a nice support for a little while after, but it failed to run up higher. When it breaks below support here and drops, support flipped rightfully into resistance. Oh, we have some good levels on this one, but this is basically in limbo. Same thing with this as the US steel trade is, where it's just kind of stuck in between levels right now. If you know my reference on like the movie Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio, and you're kind of in limbo. Yeah, we don't want to be in limbo. We'd rather be at a limbo. So maybe this comes down to support and tries to retest. Otherwise, same deal here. If this could flip resistance back into support around like 9 area, then there might be a better trade waiting there. That's all. All right, we got Michael, we got Kathleen right there. I think that's pretty much what I had from email heading into the day today, right? I don't think I saw anything else. Nope, we are good. All right, folks, we're going to finish up by going over Bitcoin. If you have any other questions, definitely let me know. If you're on YouTube, Facebook Live, etc., just we'll tell you once more before we finish up. But just make sure to hit the follow or subscribe button down below. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, if you're on LinkedIn, either way, at Cyber Trading U, especially if you're on YouTube, at Cyber Trading U is our main handle. We post all of our videos, go live on YouTube, namely. So I like to feel more inclusive, though, if I mention LinkedIn and Twitter and all the other streams. But otherwise, YouTube at Cyber Trading U is our handle. Otherwise, though, let's just bring up Bitcoin here before we finish up. These are all tiny levels here. I'm just going to delete all this crap. All right, so pretty much we had called this out heading into the end of last week, have more of a pullback on Bitcoin, back down towards like 80,000, I'm thinking, over time. So it's at least to say we're still going to be range bound. More or less, Bitcoin ended up breaking below big support from like a month or two ago, back from 91,000. It was holding that for as long as it could, but same deal with this, like with any other stock that we just analyzed. If it's not going to run off of this and continue flipping resistance into support, then we're going to see support get tested. And the more it keeps getting tested, poked at, that's going to break. And when support gets broken, support flips into resistance again. So I'm not bullish on Bitcoin until this gets back over 91,000. Otherwise, that's where we could see more of a drop, and we could see a visit back down to previous highs that we had from March of last year, right around 73, 74,000. Maybe even lower. Maybe we could even revisit the previous cycle's highs again. The previous all-time highs right around 68, 69,000. I feel like we chopped around there long enough, and the pop that we had there, I didn't think that we dropped back down to 68 again over time, but obviously, once we broke below 91,000, that's where you have to flip more, not bearish, but much less bullish. So you got to be more patient waiting for levels to play out. But that's exactly what we've been doing, right? For anyone here that's inside our trading room that was with me this time last year, that was with me January of last year, Leda, Michael, I see Charles, I see Laureen, I see Bill, Barbara, Roger, Wendy. I see a bunch of us that were with us over a year ago And you know how bullish I was then on Bitcoin, how bullish I still am long term. But that doesn't mean that we're going to totally give the middle finger to the chart here and just totally disrespect what we're seeing in front of us. We got to play it by levels. We don't want to be stuck in limbo. So that's basically my mindset. It's still my mindset going forward. I'm definitely long-term bull. And if we can get a pullback down to like 73,000, I'll definitely look to try and take a good entry if I could there. In hindsight, one thing I will say is like when this dropped down to 76, it's very hindsight. It's like Captain Hindsight speaking, because I was watching this drop on these days and I was like thinking like, do I buy? Do I take a little action here? I'm not sure if it's going to make the better bounce right away, but there could be something to it. I held off. I didn't do it. I didn't jump in. I wasn't a buyer at 77, 76 or so. So there could have been a little money to take there in like a range bound trade, but that's little compared to the potential run that we're expecting later throughout this year into the end of this year. So I'm still bullish in that regard, but let's just see how levels play out over time. We might get one more dip back down there, if not even lower, if not even lower. And again, if we pop back up higher again suddenly, if there's crazy news that comes out, that leads Bitcoin to pop back up to 91,000. Remember, I don't mind taking a trade from a higher price level if there's more conviction. If we just said it about QUBT, and if we're saying it about, ex-US steel here, then you better damn believe we'll say that about Bitcoin. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. Just day by day, week by week, we'll see how these levels play out. I'm more so looking for a pullback here. I am looking more for a pullback here, if anything, but we'll react accordingly if we get some unexpected move back up. Now, when I talk about like crazy good news happening, let me ask, who here is familiar with Michael Saylor? He's the CEO of MicroStrategy, MSTR. Anyone here familiar with Michael Saylor? And Dave is, Andrea is, Sam a little bit. Leda says she's heard me talk about him. John. All right. So more or less, Michael Saylor has bought so much Bitcoin through his company, and I'm sure throughout his like personal accounts and whatever. But so many new traders are like looking at this guy as if he's God. And if you listen to his interviews from like 10 years ago when Bitcoin was first, being traded and he was discussing it, and if you hear him talk about like the dot-com bubble, he's not some mastermind great trader. He's an investor. He's buying long term. So if Bitcoin drops off 5% after he buys, he's not going to get upset. He's not going to do anything, in fact, but just buy more. Now, that means, though, for you as a trader, if you're not an investor, if you're not, as the kids say, if you're not hodling, if you're not holding on for dear life and just buying and dollar cost averaging going up, to which if you are, then great. But if you are not doing that, and if you're just playing this as a trader, Bitcoin we're talking about, then you can't really call Michael Saylor like, God. You can't say like, okay, then, anytime he buys, it's going to go up. Look at all the times that he bought here. These are all the times that this guy has purchased Bitcoin, and a lot of it too. Right here, $561 million worth of Bitcoin he bought, MicroStrategy, at $106,662 per coin. Right over here, back from January 21st, 1.1 billion. Over here, 724 milli, back from February 10th. So I just point this out to you because if you're new to Bitcoin, if you're new to crypto, you're like, okay, Michael Saylor, he's good to follow. Like, follow him because he's bullish, he's long term, but he's sipping a different Kool-Aid than you are if you're taking this as a trade and he's just DCAing. Because with how much Bitcoin dropped off here, he was just smiling. He just kept buying more and more and more and more. He's going long term. If you're not thinking that way, then this is not like good news. Meaning that I think that he bought even this morning, right? I think that's UTC time, 1303. I think that's UTC time there, 1303 UTC. Basically, this morning, Saylor announced he bought $1.9 billion worth of Bitcoin at $86,969 per coin. Okay, Why is Bitcoin not popping up then? Right? Now I'm like asking my new traders this. I'm asking anyone that's new to Bitcoin this, because if you're not new to Bitcoin, then you realize that this guy doesn't run the show. Just because he's buying doesn't mean that, the whole market's flying on upward. Maybe Bitcoin was very easily manipulated back 4 years ago, and it was even that much more manipulated 4 years before that. That's just where here, since it's become so institutionalized, this is a lot more tied to ES. Speaking of, it's a lot more tied to NQ. It's a lot more tied to the overall markets here that we're working with. So if the stock market is dropping off today, then I can't imagine Bitcoin trying to make some crazy bounce on its own. If we're getting a bounce back up on the market, Bitcoin's moved up a little bit this morning with it, but it's gone more flat now since. They're two totally separate beings, right? But it's just to say that this guy, Michael Saylor, don't buy just because he's buying. He's working on a totally different game plan than you are. I guarantee it. So that's just where you want to give great respect to just the charts and the levels here. That's all. Now you might ask, like, well, why is Saylor not doing that then? He's working a different game plan. I don't know what else to tell you. He's got a different game plan than me and you. So, he's wrong a lot of times. That's where, at least here, if I could see this try and dip down, I'll definitely be more of a buyer around this area. Or maybe if we can just get this retested again, the lows back from mid-March. All right. So, folks, hey, I'll tell you what, we're going to finish up here in just a moment. For Peter and J-Rod, I appreciate you here as well. J-Rod on YouTube asking, does CTU have a live futures trading room? A lot of our students inside our trading room do trade ES and NQ. We don't have a separate room for that, but a lot of our students do trade the futures markets, and we'll help them accordingly. So that's the best answer I could really give you there, J-Rod. Otherwise, though, a lot of what we trade in our room will be applicable towards the futures markets. So I still love for you to join us inside our room. Just go right down to the link on the bottom, actually down below. You'll see it popping up here in just a moment. You can also scan with your phone, with your camera on the top right, the QR code. Get you access to a workshop coming up that we'll be doing. But otherwise, whether you trade futures, options, you're an investor or a trader alike, we try and accommodate for all markets here. All right, folks, let me just make sure that we are just about good to go here. John says he sees his name on Bloomberg Business. He's talking about Saylor. Listen, follow the guy in terms of just seeing what he does. Just, don't live and die by his every word, right? That's my advice to anyone there. MLGO pushing towards 25. No way. Are we getting it? Whoa. And look what happened at 23.50. Most importantly, look what happened at 23.50, right? The more that this keeps getting poked at and poked at and poked at in a smaller period of time, what did I just tell you? It's more possible at the minimum for this to make a better move. Now, I wasn't telling you I was going to buy instantly myself. I'm teaching a workshop, jumping onto a coaching call after this, jumping onto a coaching call after that. But it is to tell you, though, this strategy played out pretty much perfect. The more it's testing and pinning itself up to that price in a smaller period of time. That's the last part that we need to emphasize. In a smaller period of time. These level tests are a lot closer to each other compared to this one was. So it allows for that momentum squeeze. Now, obviously, we'll see what happens at 25 bucks, right? And it still could hold under 25 and then just pull back again. So it's probably going to take a little while for this to try and make a better move, even off at 25 coming up, just because it's been a while since it tested that area. Give it a little space. But nice move off that 23.50, though. That's for damn sure. All right, folks, we're going to wrap up, at least for the time being. Alicia, Sam, Gillis, John, Lynn, and Randy, all of us here in chat. You certainly know I'm not going anywhere for you. Actually, stay right here. I'll be back at 2:30 p.m. just for the afternoon meeting. You can always private chat me if you have any questions. I actually just got one right now from my friend Dave right here. I will answer you, Dave, just on the side in a moment right now. I just saw your chat actually here. So otherwise, though, we'll be back inside our live trading room later on today. If you're on YouTube, on Facebook, any of our social media streams or handles there, again, popping up lower left at Cyber Trading U. We hope that you'd enjoyed. got a bit of a stutter right now. The tongue is getting tied up, but be a friend, tell a friend, hit the follow or subscribe button down below. Otherwise, join us inside our live trading room Monday to Friday, going right down to the link scrolling in blue below that. And again, otherwise, we'll be back at it at least in just a little bit later on today, folks. Talk to you all soon.